This is TWiT.
You can jailbreak it now. How about that?
The iPhone, every iPhone, right?
Do
Every
people jailbreak
iPhone.
their phones
that's,
as much anymore?
The truth is, I saw this story and I didn't. This is the only place I brought it up because it's like, who cares?
Well,
some people iPadify, like they want to take the Instagram app, or they want to take the iPad only stuff like Playgrounds and run it on their iPads, or take like the iPhone only stuff like Instagram and run it on their iPads. And so like that, like there's like very niche, nerdy little things that you can still do, but I'm not convinced any of them are worth the effort anymore.
I think the hacker community in general gets the joy of jailbreaking, but outside of that, just the average everyday people, that's where I think it's kind of just a fun thing to do now instead of it being almost a necessity like it used to be for some people.
Like dark mode is done. We got dark mode. We're fine.
It's downloadable if you want from GitHub, from Pwn to Own Stuff. You can. It's the Uncover 5.0.0. It will let you jailbreak any iPhone running iOS 11 all the way up to the most recent version of iOS 13.5. Who cares? I don't care. It's a dumb thing to do. I understand, but don't do it. Why would you do it? I understand. You gave some reasons, but if you want to do that kind of stuff, buy a Pixel. Buy something else. Don't buy an iPhone.
Yeah, but still, it is significant for the rest of us because Apple doesn't have an unlocked bootloader. It doesn't say, "Please, we invite you to customize." It means that people who wanted a new exciting version of a new flashlight and fart app found weaknesses in the security of the phone, which means that other people probably found those same weaknesses in the security of the phone as well. So,
I just feel like you shouldn't buy an iPhone to customize it. That's
expecting to customize. Yeah,
expecting to customize it. I mean, you're right. It's your phone. You should be able to do whatever the hell you want with it, and I'm glad you can. But really, people who buy iPhones. In my mind, you should buy an iPhone because you like the way Apple says to do things, and you should just do it that way. And if
I have this theory. That people go to the store, and if they don't know anything about phones, they don't care anything about phones, they just want to be able to use Facebook, they get whatever phone is $0 on their carrier, and it's usually an Android phone that's heavily subsidized, or like the sales rep has a promotion for getting rid of it. They're fine. Other people are like nervous, and they've heard Apple phones are easier to use, so they come in asking for an iPhone. Then at a certain point, they get bored. They're like, there's a grid of icons. There's this. I just want to make my phone my phone. So they get an Android phone, often a Samsung phone. They change the font to Comic Sans. They do whatever they want with it, and they're fine. But then at a certain point, they're like, it's taking so much time to customize, and I've got to reset it, and it's not working, and it's getting old. And look, I'm tired of working for my phone. I just want a phone that I can't do anything with, so all I can do is make that phone work, and then go back to an iPhone.
So you invented the circle of iPhone is what you've done.
Yes.
The circle of iPhone.
I went through this, Leo.
I was going to cite a different Broadway theme.
Okay.
So basically, you're taking the George III approach. You'll be back soon. You'll see. You'll remember. You'll buy a brand new iPhone.
You go back and forth, right? Like it's like sometimes you buy your furniture, sometimes you make your furniture. It depends on your mood, and we're lucky we have the choice to go with what we want at the moment.
The problem is that people want a choice with the iPhone, which is fine, I guess, and yeah, you can jailbreak it. It's just
then
it
pay
makes
the choice
everything
tax.
so janky. Yeah, it's such a
all the screenshots on Twitter are suddenly Comic Sans, and just think of the rest of us.
Maybe the new super low-cost 2020 iPhone SE is going to make it easier, or make it something that jailbreakers want, because they can have their really expensive, $1,000 iPhone that they don't jailbreak, plus their $400 iPhone SE that they can just play around with. Right. Like maybe, I would consider it just for fun if I had that desire, for sure.
When I was going up to Canada to do Call for Help with Amber MacArthur, and the first iPhone came out in 2007. I bought one for her. You couldn't run it because it was only on AT&T. You couldn't run it in Canada. I jailbroke it and gave it to her. She never used it, probably because it was janky, right? It was funky.
Remember the jailbreak was a TIFF. Like you opened a TIFF or something in the browser, and the whole phone was jailbroken.
It was a mess.
Yeah, it's a really cool part. Jailbreaking is a really cool part of the history of the iPhone, because we forget how much of our pleasure of using an iPhone was based on agreeing to wait on basic features that have been out for years.
Right.
Like, again,
like cut and paste.
Cut and pastes, tethering, exactly, apps, just basic things that were like, the only thing I wish I had in my BlackBerry was the ability to tether, the ability to do that. And on that basis, yes, heroic means are necessary so that you can continue to not have to use a BlackBerry or not you have to use a Trio or something like that. But yeah, I like Renee's idea that for everybody, that if you've been using like an iPhone for five or 10 years, and you feel that you're legitimately intrigued by Android, or the vice versa. Like I've now been on Android since like 2013, 2014, and now I'm legitimately intrigued about. I'm still my daily driver phone is a Pixel 1. It is now at end of life. It's not going to get any more security updates. So this is the year that I really kind of need to replace it. And there's a really good chance I'll buy an iPhone, not necessarily because anything has disgusted me about Google or Pixel phones, but that I've been with this for 7 years now. The two platforms are really, really similar at this point, and it would be kind of fun to be back on the iPhone platform for the next 2 or 3 years of using a phone. I think that if you're not excited enough to try to walk on the other side of the street for a while, you kind of lost your lust for technology.
I should mention that a jailbreak on an iPhone is not the same thing as rooting on Android. Only thing a jailbreak does on the iPhone is let you use third-party stores. That's all.
It breaks the root jail, basically.
Yeah. But on an Android phone, there's a setting for that.
Yeah.
But on an Android phone, in order to get it to maybe run a third-party a ROM, and so that you have a completely different phone, or you get updates or whatever you want to do, you can, in some, not all, you can root them, which means you can completely replace the firmware.
Yeah. Get on the elevator, you flash it, you come out with a completely different ROM.
Yeah, so that's a very different thing from jailbreaking. Jailbreaking is kind of a trivial, simple thing. And the only reason I don't recommend it is because those third-party stores, God only knows what's in there.
Yeah. Well, the other reason, I mean, one of the reasons why there's a lot of, hey, I own this phone, I should be able to do what I want with this phone. A lot of that comes down to I should be able to download commercial apps I don't have to pay for from really, really weird, Siberian repositories that have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I could jailbreak an iPhone and put a headphone jack on it, that'd be a different matter.
Yeah. That's a hardware break. Well, the guy who did that. Remember? You got to drill a soldering iron.
Okay.
Yep.
That was epic.
Probably janky as well.
Higher level skill.
That channel alone, every time there's an argument about right to repair, saying, well, the thing is, like, there's nothing that there's nothing that a user can do that an Apple store can't do better. Saying, yeah, but you realize that you've got this guy that used to live like actually in like cell phone city, and said, gee, I wonder if there's a way I could put a headphone jack on an iPhone. You just keeps going back and forth to like the stores to the hacker malls. And now he's got a headphone jack on the same.
I want a waffle iron on the Pixel. Like, just keep going. That's a great channel. Keep going.
I think. See, I'll match you 1 for 1. If there's a Kickstarter where I can buy a fully breadboarded phone, just nothing but like wire connectors.
I think such things exist.
Phones.
I mean, does Purism and others, don't they make phones that are pretty, like, you could just get in there and do anything you want with them?
There's for the Raspberry Pi platform, you can buy like a 3G module for it.
Yeah.
And there are plans to here's how to build a phone completely from scratch. And I love that idea. However, by the time it's finished, it's about the size of a carton of milk, and I'm not sure that I'm ready to be that flashy about my nerddom.
I just feel like the iPhone is kind of a perfect, elegant thing, and it's just
it's a mainstream phone. It really is a mainstream smartphone.
Well, increasingly, and I like Android. And you see, I have a Pixel 4, but increasingly, I'm just thinking, maybe I'm at that end of the cycle that you went through, Renee, where I just feel like it's more secure. The iPhone's more secure. The iPhone, yes, I wish it had some other. I wish it had widgets. I was that guy,
Leo. Like, I had the Palms and the Windows mobiles, and I was forever tweaking them and customizing them and going, why does one on this carrier have Wi-Fi and one on this carrier has 3G? And it was a wild west of phones. And now,
well, you know what? I think that Apple could, in terms of all the things I really like customizing my Android phone about, Apple could totally obliterate that whole advantage in my mind by simply giving us a much better launcher.
I totally agree. Yeah.
Not just that, but how about the ability to create my own widgets and shortcuts and put them anywhere I want to amongst those icons?
Or allow third-party launchers as Android does.
Because that is the most wonderful. That's the most wonderful thing.
Attacks.
Yeah. Okay. That's
the what tax? What are they worried about?
They're worried about it. Like, so I think what Andy's talking about is something that they'll move to, where you can basically create any shortcut or create any widget or put anything in any arbitrary place. I think they're worried about seeding for two reasons: seeding new launchers, because there would be a Google and a Facebook launcher like that, and that's one of their worries.
But if
also
people
that there
want
would be
that,
launchers
they should be able to get that. Why?
Well, no, absolutely. But also that there would be launchers that just do it in a way. Because like the first thing the Facebook launcher would do is measure every app that you launch ever, so that they could figure out which ones to buy, and then they're all the way back at their VPN circle again.
Right. By the way, there's a guy in the chat room who's very sophisticated. He says if you have Xcode and you have the source code, you can install arbitrary apps using Xcode.
Yeah, that's true.
Legally and legitimately. And that might be, for somebody who's sufficiently technically skilled, a safer and preferable way to do it. Let me ask, I don't know, maybe Gardner could respond, or guys, but do you have to use test flight, or how do you install apps from Xcode directly on there? Do you have
test flight is for other people. For test flight, you can just tether your phone and push them over. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I mean, you'd have to self-sign them, but that's not a big deal.
Yeah, and the phone wouldn't barf. It'd just say, okay.
No, there's stuff now. There's a bunch of utilities that you just download off GitHub, and you build them in Xcode, self-sign them, push them over.
That. But see, that's a perfect example. I could do that. I have Xcode. I know how to do that. I code. But I don't want to. It's like, I'm fine.
And it's a good barrier to entry for people who shouldn't be doing it.
Yeah.
But also, on the other hand, it's nice to bootstrap people into taking more control and learning more things. When the first thing you do is something that is you're just following instructables that you found someplace, and then you realize, well, how do I? That's nice. Wonder how I can do this, and then you sort of get a little bit into the deeper ends of the pool and the deeper ends of the pool. That's but as I'm talking about this, though, I do have to acknowledge that this is the difference between stuff that I think is important, because I sometimes I have like a fatherly approach, thinking that, well, son, like, I could help you to fix that bike, but I think it's time for you to learn how to upgrade that bike yourself. And it's not something that most people want. I agree, and I would love it if the iPhone were a platform that could do. That could represent everything that I want a phone to be, but that's not practical either. Like Renee said, That's why I keep piggybacking on Renee. One of the things that is also sort of tempting me about the iPhone is that it really is just a beautiful, elegant device. Pixels, I think, are designed at that level as well, but it really isn't targeted towards people who really want to customize their experience and give themselves something that works a little bit better for them. They really want something where they take it out of the box, they charge it, they answer what language that they use, and then they're taking great pictures and posting them to Instagram. And I have to say that I'm very, very tempted this year to upgrade to the iPhone 12, and part of it is that it's like, I understand that Pixel. I understand that you're. I believe in you. I think you got a great plan. Mm-hmm. I think that you're going through a rebuilding year, just like any successful pro team has a rebuilding year where they're saying, you know what, we're gonna get our relief pitching in order. We're gonna figure out what our training regimen is going wrong. I'll be back in a couple of years, but maybe it's time for me to switch back to the iPhone for a few years.
I had the opposite reaction. So like I saw that everything with like Mark being fired or leaving. He was the head of Pixel Camera, for people who don't know.
Yeah,
that was probably the biggest strength that Google had. And just can I interrupt and say he is the inventor of night vision and computation.
Yeah. My first, I have some of the most fun I've ever had was with when he was the head of a professor at Stanford. He released a multi app, I think it was called Multicam, for the iPhone 3, and I just remember putting my iPhone on a tripod and taking these pictures of a statue in the public garden in Boston, and seeing how it was differentiating between the things that were permanently there and things were coming and going. So that's why it's a really big deal that they lost this super visionary sort of guy. There's still lots of great engineers there in the photo division, of course. But when you say that it's his ideas that created night vision, which was a signature feature, his ideas that made HDR plus, right, super red zoom, that's scary. So I'm sorry, sorry for interrupting.
The thing for me is and then Osterloh's like, I didn't know the battery was bad. It's like, I bought almost every Nexus. I bought almost every Pixel. I think I bought every Pixel. And I am probably not going to. And now the next one is delayed, and who knows how long. It might be delayed so much that the 4A comes out when the fight. And I'm taking a Pixel pause. I hope that they can get their act together. I think their vice president, their head of product, and their head of engineering really need to get in the same room and decide they're making one phone and not three phones that they make a horrible hybrid in at the last minute. But I might actually go for like a Samsung Fold 2 or Flip 2 this year instead, because I not that they're making more interesting things. I still like Google's software way better. But if the Pixel continues to be shenaniganized like this, I might try something different this year.
That will consistently be a signature advantage of the Android platform, that maybe a foldable phone is not for everybody, but for the people who really want one, here are three different kinds to choose from. Or here is a 7.5-inch phone, or all these different weird aspect ratios, these different weird form factors, even things that are small enough that you could put inside like a cosmetic case.
Because I'll have an iPhone, so if Joanna Stern puts a hot dog in my Fold, it won't stop me for long. Like, I'll be fine.
Show title. Joanna Stern put a hot dog
in my Galaxy Fold.
I like the idea of having a technical barrier, but letting people do things if they can surmount that technical barrier. A good example is with Gatekeeper. They're slowly making it more and more just, you can't install anything that's not notarized by Apple, that's not from the Apple Store. But what they've left, and I hope they keep leaving it, in fact, I got it from iMore, is a command line you can enter that will give Gatekeeper that third permission again to install from third-party stores or third-party sources. And if you're sophisticated enough to know that command line and be able to use it, then you should be allowed to do that.
My gripe is that they won't let Homebrew for 32. Their loss of 32-bit apps is just so bad for the music industry and for the gaming industry that I really want them to say, we're not going to do 32-bit compatibility anymore. You want to download something from the open source community to do it, like other platforms are doing. That's fine. But I think that was one step too far.
Is there a risk that Homebrew won't work on Mac someday?
Homebrew Works is just 32-bit binaries. My godkids wanted to do Portal, the level builder, and it's still 32-bit, and they can't do it on the Mac. They have to boot camp and do it on Windows.
I'm a little bit more supportive of Apple on that. You kind of have one of the things Apple's really good at, and in contrast to Microsoft, is leaving behind older technologies, and it's tough because then you're killing legacy things like Portal level builders.
Yeah, the developers are no longer around to make. It's not that they don't want to make updates. It's that literally the people who made them it was 10 years ago.
It does make an operating system better to eliminate this old cruft, I think.
I think just make it a hobbyist thing. Make it a thing that the open source community. It's like what they did when they stopped including Perl and all the different scripts and all the different
Python
services.
And Perl.
Yeah,
with
they don't do it anymore.
With Homebrew, by the way. But so you don't need to, Apple. And if somebody needs it, they have the skills to do it. I just like that. I like having a technical bar that makes sense on the Mac. Would it make sense on an iOS device, or is iOS really? It's really a walled garden. It's built to be that way.
Well, you have the Xcode thing. That's your barrier of entry.
I haven't played with that. I'm gonna have to try it. It is what makes the iPhone elegant, and it's one of the reasons I don't want to jailbreak it.
Before test flight, and this probably happened to Lori too, if there was developers who ran out of beta slots, they sometimes would just send you, say, hey, you got to build it and sign it, but here's how you're going to beta test it.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay.